This is Radar for On the Radar Tape Blog coming to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observations. This is number 81. So, due to the fact that I ran out of movies, the first movie I watched was Barge People. And this was basically this long-term relationship between a guy and a woman. I don't know if they're engaged, they've been dating, or you're married or whatever, but pretty much they go, and they're on this barge and, in England, and they're on this boat and stuff, and she brings along like her sister and her sister's boyfriend, and her sister's boyfriend is a prick pretty much. Like, he's only worried about his business and everything else, and that's what he's worried about. He's not trying to have a good time. They kind of rile the local townspeople, and then they're just trying to mind their own business, and those townspeople come and attack them, and you think, okay, this movie's going to be about being attacked by the local townspeople in this small little town off the water. But really, it's a horror film because on these canals and this waterside thing, there are these people, these barge people who eat human flesh, and they live in the water, and they come in attacking at people, and people are dying, and the whole movie is them trying to survive the movie. And that's the whole movie, and it's like a very cliche horror film where either nobody survives or one human being survives in the end, and that human being asks other people to help her, and then they die, and all this other stuff. And the twist is, this is not just regular people. Supposedly, it's here's an inbreeding with this family, and the bartender lady, that's her family and stuff. And I'm just like, it's an okay, horror film. It was only an hour and like 20 minutes at most, so it's not like you're wasting your time. And then I watched The Pale Door, which was an more interesting version of like a horror film because it took place like in the Western, cowboy times where you got these robbers and things like that. And it's also has actors people have heard of. I have seen Bill Sage as veteran actor before. Not Bill Sage. Stan Shaw. I've seen Stan Shaw before. He's been in a lot of things. Devin Druid. I just saw him recently as a love interest on LA to Vegas. He is also was in an episode of 911. Oh wait, no, I'm getting probably the wrong person in this movie that I've seen before. Yeah, it's not Devin Druid or Bill Sage. It is Zachary Quinton. So Zachary Quinton, Knighton, he was in LA to Vegas. I've seen this guy before, and he's basically the lead in this movie where he's in charge of this gang. His father died years ago. People in this gang knew his parents. His brother's trying to get his life together, and he's working at like a saloon. And they have this one gig they want to do where they can go retire and things like that. And I know him also from Flash Forward, and he was in Weird Loners Happy Ending. So I've seen him, and he's been in Magnum PI. So I've seen him in a lot of things. So some of these actors you've seen before, and they basically go on this bank robbing mission, and they're like, okay, there are more security. There's a girl that's been kidnapped. It's less money, and they have to hide away in this ghost town. But in reality, it's all women in this ghost town. And I think, oh, cool, we're gonna have some drinks and the food, have relations, and we're all gonna be good. Then they gotta throw in the fact that Zachary Knighton's brother is gay back in Western times. I was like, okay, that's good to know. And then this turned into a horror film because these are witches and they've been living for like hundreds of years and they want to kill these men. And the whole movie is they have to try to survive these witches that are trying to attack them. And of course, like in a horror film, these creatures are attacking them. Nobody survives, or one person survives, and all the other stuff. And this gay boy is supposedly the one that they don't want to kill and survive. So it was 90 minutes. It was a hot spot between like horror and like fantasy with the witches, but then it's a western and cowboy time, and it's a little bit more interesting, and there's actors I've heard of. But again, this is like a sub-rate, dual type of genre film. So I'm just like, there's probably a reason why the library doesn't own it on DVD, nor does any library. It is also on IMDb, like the other one, a 4 out of 10. So that's not where it is. And then I watched the documentary Where She Lies, where this woman had a child out of wedlock, and there was mysteries of if the baby died because the doctor said it, or if her father, put into adoption or not, and if these people are her kids, and she's gone through the trouble of reaching out to these people that could potentially be her daughter, screwing her over. And it really doesn't get that much closure in the movie because it was like a lot of, is this person this, is this person that in this documentary, or did the person actually die or not? I still watching this movie did not figure out exactly was her daughter alive and was adopted by another family, or if, she actually did die. So it was it was an interesting investigation into it. It was only 90-something minutes, so it wasn't that bad. It was much betterly put together than the other two films I watched on streaming. Then I finally got actual physical movies. I watched Redemption Day and I watched Violent Heart. So Redemption Day is a cheesy action flick where everybody's trying to copy Taken and other movies where somebody in your family has been kidnapped and you got to go save them and you got these set of skills. This time it's a dude who's been discharged from the military and he's been home and dealing with like PTSD. And I've never really heard of this Gary Dourdan dude, but I was like, cool. The woman who's currently on the coroner on, the TV show that the CW has been showing the last couple of years, it is great because that the Serena Swan woman, Serena Swan, she, if you don't know this, she was Medusa in the failed Marvel show Inhumans. She was Antenna as well on Smallville. And I'm looking at this like, okay, cool. She's a good actress. I like her. She's playing his wife. And she's this famous archaeologist, supposedly, and they're doing this dug in Morocco. And the whole movie is she gets kidnapped along with all her co-workers and people that work in Morocco. And he's like, I don't care what it's got to take. I got to get to Morocco to save my wife. Ernie Hudson plays his father, and he locals the gym, and he's good enough in a supporting role. Then Andy Garcia is supposedly like a diplomat or at the embassy in Morocco, because they really didn't specify what his role is, but he's talking to like the cabinet or all the people in the Secretary of State, whatever. He's talking to the president, trying to handle the situation because she is a U.S. citizen and she was kidnapped. And I'm just like, okay, cool. I don't really, know every single person in this movie, but I was like, okay, that's interesting. I've seen that person. And Robert Knepper, of course, plays a creepy dude, which is what he did in Heroes and Prison Break and every other movie. He's supposedly an oil tycoon in this movie. And then you have Martin Donovan, who's now on Nancy Drew, but I remember from Legends of Tomorrow. He is also supposedly a CIA operative, so he's in their country or whatever. So I'm just like, okay, that's cool. Then they have like a daughter, so they got to worry about her and all these other things. So it's a little cliche because he's got to go do this. He's got the PTSD. He's working with an agent from another country who supposedly he saved his life. They don't really explain that. And you think the two of them could take on a whole Taliban, terrorist cell group who wants this ransom for these people. Like, it's not the most believable thing ever in the world, but it's got action. It's got famous people. When you got Martin Donovan, Ernie Hudson, Andy Garcia as famous people, and the creepy actor, Robert Knepper in it. So there's like, you got enough big time actors. Serena Swan and Gary Dourdan did good jobs in both the roles. He saves the day. Yada yada. Everything comes back great. But then at the end of the movie, they got to show something with Martin Donovan, CIA operative, and Robert Knepper, the oil tycoon, to see how this was somehow a setup. Because one of the people kidnapped didn't die, and he looked perfectly fine, but other people died. And you're like, I don't think you have to show that unless you're going to make a sequel to take down the oil tycoon person and this corrupt CIA agent, because they're like, it doesn't do that much for the plot to show that scene. The movie should end with, okay, 9 months later, she has the baby. Everything's fine. They didn't do that. So it's not the best movie. It's, as I said, a formulaic, cliche action film, saving somebody, blah, 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 with a certain set of skills, and they put a couple big-time actors like Andy Garcia and Ernie Hudson, and you'll watch it. Then I watched The Violent Heart, which was, about a 90-something to an hour, 40-minute movie, where you kind of have a thriller, suspense, mystery, intrigue in the movie, but it's also trying to be like a romantic movie where this ex-con who's a mechanic is trying to join the military, and he bumps into this woman who's an 18-year-old high school student who doesn't have many friends, and she's getting an oil change, and the two of them get to know each other, and it becomes a love story where the parents go, you can't be the next con, or, this woman's white, or she's a high schooler, blah, 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 blah. And then the movie has Mary J. Blige is the mother of the main guy, and I'm just like, okay, cool. Guess she's doing acting now. And Cress Williams of Black Lightning, okay? He's the father, but he's barely in the movie. He's only in the movie in the past and in the flashbacks, because he's in the military too, there's a younger brother who's really much younger than the main guy. And the movie starts off with the main dude's sister dying, him witnessing and trying to save her and stuff. So that's in your head, and you're like, okay, so let's see how he deals with PTSD of his sister dying. And you find out that he went to prison because a dude attacked him and he punched him in the eye and made him blind, and that's why he went to prison, and that's why it's been hard for him again in the military and fix his life and all the things like that. And you're like, okay, it's an inspirational story. You want to see him to go on out on top. Maybe this woman is the best thing for him. Maybe he's the best thing for her. This girl has a really weird relationship with her father. Really, they're super close. He's an English teacher. He's her teacher, and they all about books. And the mother of her in the movie is a woman from, I Know Her, according to Jim, Kimberly Williams. She was Jim's like sister-in-law in the movie, and I'm like, she doesn't really do that much for the movie. The father is supposedly this Lucas Haas dude, and he's playing a creepy dude because there's suspicions of him being an adulterer. And as soon as I read the plot, because the plot of this movie, it took him 2 paragraphs to write it. It wasn't a basic, simple thing. I said to myself, like, I'm predicting it right here and then. The mysterious dude who killed the main guy, Daniel's sister, is Cassie's father, because he's been hiding something for years. And I knew it as soon as I watched the movie. And you're like, why'd you give away the plot? Because the point of these movies is I'm trying to tell you not to watch these movies. If I give you the plot and I tell you about the movie, that means you don't even have to go sit there and watch it. So that's what I'm trying to tell you is I knew it from the end, from the beginning, this was the plot. You know, all the stupid, things with how the family is, and then you find out later on that when the sister was shot and killed, it was because he didn't want the relationship to come out. We all know that. Those are cliche things, but then find out that she's also was carrying a child, and that would have ruined everything. And supposedly that the baby lived, and that the baby, they decided that because Daniel, the main character, was so young in the movie, that it would be best for everybody to say that it was Mary J. Blige's son and not the sister who died. So that the younger brother is actually Daniel's nephew, and it's Mary J. Blige's grandchild and Chris Williams' grandchild. And then the movie, the way it ends is like, she finds all this out, confronts the father, wants to go to the police about it. He's trying to convince her not. Daniel comes and finds out the whole truth and chokes the dude to death, and he's dead. And then the stupid mother, played by Kimberly Williams, shoots Daniel, and Daniel dies. And nothing good happens when the father dies and go to prison for being a murderer. And Daniel can't move on with his life and maybe find a different job or go in another branch of the military if he can't do the Marines and the two of them can be happily after ever. No, let's have Mary J. Blige lose another child. Let the nephew find out that his uncle and his mother are dead from the same dude who didn't go to prison. And she doesn't have a lover. So it's like, that ending, it just ruined the movie for something that could have been uplifting and trying to get to the bottom of a thing. The best way the movie would have ended is the dude goes to prison, and the two of them live happily after ever, and the kid finds out that his mother is not his sister. So yeah, Pale Door and the Barge People were not so great horror films. Where She Lies was an okay documentary, is not the best. I really didn't get an answer to the bottom line what happened. Redemption was a cliche movie, but it's good enough with the actors and the plot to save it. And Violent Heart, I gave the whole entire premise because it was just a horribly put together and written movie, and the ending was horrible. Thanks for listening to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observations, number 81. From the Radar Table Blog, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.